They had now no friends to welcome them, nor inns to entertain or refresh their weather-beaten bodies. That's William Bradford reflecting on the Pilgrims' first sight of New England's coast in late 1620, cold, hungry, far from home. The line lands because it's about more than weather. It's about vulnerability, intent, and myth, the space between what we hope to build and what history actually gives us. A year later, we get the iconic Thanksgiving. But even that story, as we'll see, is wrapped up with disease, diplomacy, and a fragile alliance with the Wampanoag people.
I just tried out one of our sound effects.
Did it make a sound?
It did.
Okay.
I could
one
hear
did
it
you
on
do?
my end.
Which one was it?
Rim shot?
Yeah, the
Rim shot.
Oh, I mean, I think usually you do that after a joke, and Mr. Hill was talking about some
The
really
Wampanoag's
Okay.
disease-ridden.
Okay, I'm new to our new soundboard.
It's okay.
Yeah,
You know
all
what?
right.
She got a little giddy with the sound effects. It's understandable.
I'm going to go nuts with this soundboard. Now I'm in charge of this recording. It used to be Garrison, and now this box is right in front of me, and I've got this for when Garrison
Okay, we don't have to go
is
through all of
boring.
them.
Okay.
Okay, I can do.
We're going to hear that one a lot.
I can do.
Yeah, we get it.
Okay. Well, just so everybody knows, that's what we're working with now.
Just to clarify, if you remember our last episode, we did a little DIY.
DIY.
Yes.
That's why I said it right this time.
He cleaned up his language.
Um,
job.
Yeah.
We did some recording during lunch in the classroom with a very not so great microphone.
Hold on.
Very good.
It took me a second. That's kind of misleading because it says trombone, which makes sense, but I need like a
It's a
thing
work
that
in
says
progress.
sad.
Yeah, it's
It's
a
a
sassy
sad
trombone.
trombone.
It's
Yeah.
So we said we were getting some new equipment, and lucky enough, we have a pretty sweet new setup here. As you can tell, there are some effects that we now have access to. I think this is going to improve our overall sound quality.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, Ms. Keltner now has access to all of these buttons. So just bear with us as we get used to this. But back to where this episode began, Mr. Hill was guiding us through this really epic moment in early American history. So welcome back to APUSH for All. If you couldn't tell, we're going to do some interesting traveling today. We're going to look at some of the early company charters that went out and tried to settle what they called the New World. We're going to look at some church covenants, some charismatic dissenters, devastating wars, imperial trade laws, and early habits of self-government.
Yeah, and we're going to start with a storm-tossed ship and a handwritten compact to the city upon a hill. This is a story of covenants and conscience, and it's of people testing how far their faith and power could stretch. And along the way, like Garrison said, dissent speaks, frontiers burn, and an empire quietly.
I believe that says quiet. Can you do? Yeah.
Quietly tightens its grip.
I think you did that on purpose.
Maybe. Okay, so we all know the name Plymouth. We know Plymouth Rock, and we've got to contextualize that a little bit. So actually, the Plymouth Company received a charter in 1606, but it never mounted to a lasting settlement yet. But it did sponsor an exploration by one John Smith, who we heard about last week, and he toured and mapped the region, and he rebranded it New England. And that name,
Not very original.
No, it's not. But the name matters because it's marketing for new settlers to come over, and it's a motivation for why these pilgrims are going to come over. And pilgrims, we should also talk about them as separatists. They were trying to separate from the Church of England. They had tried to separate in Holland, where wages were poor and their children started slipping into Dutch culture. Oh, no.
Oh, no, the Dutch.
Oh, no.
Oh, crazy. Who would want? Would they have like the what are the
Most,
shoes?
hey, listen, most of my
Yeah.
family is Dutch, and I kind of get where they're,
Yeah.
where they're coming from there.
So they attempted to separate in Holland, didn't work out. So in 1620, they're going to sail westward across the Atlantic to create a stable and protected community where they could spread the gospel of the kingdom of Christ.
So when they landed far north of their intended Virginia destination, they kind of back then Virginia was this giant piece of land. Everything was Virginia. So they thought they would be much further south. But in fact, they had landed outside the London Company's actual given jurisdiction. So they're on the ship and they're sitting there and they kind of realize that they have an opportunity here to sort of do their own thing. And that's where they begin drafting the Mayflower Compact, agreeing to form, quote, a civil body politic, which sounds an awful lot like a government, to enact, quote, just and equal laws for the common good and to obey them. It's a short little compact, a short little agreement, but it foreshadows a habit of self-governance. And this is going to become an extremely important through line for APUSH.
And the Pilgrims, they're going to land just south of Boston in what is now
Boston.
Yeah, what is now Plymouth, Massachusetts, which I've been to twice, and I was there this summer. And Plymouth Rock just always is as disappointing as ever.
No.
Where did you park the car?
Was
Pack
it by the
car,
harbor?
right by the harbor.
Probably by the harbor.
By the
I
harbor.
don't know.
Yeah.
The best part of Plymouth is actually the food.
Oh, really?
They have a great food scene in Plymouth, Massachusetts.
If you're from Plymouth, are you considered a Plymouthian?
Plymouthian?
A Plymouthian, maybe. Okay.
Plymouth
It's ironic that
Or
they
maybe
have good food
maybe some guy
because
from Boston.
the Puritans were so bland in their food.
right? But no, the Plymouth food scene is
Okay.
great.
Well, speaking of food,
Perfect, yes.
Speaking of food, or the lack thereof.
Yeah.
Speaking of food,
Yeah, because if I'm a stand-up comedian and I deliver a joke about food, boom, that's what's coming next. That first winter, it hit pretty hard. Okay, half the colonists are gonna die. Survival
Wait.
turned what?
This is,
Which is a downer.
This is gonna get
Oh
old
my
so
God,
quick.
she is
it's
gonna
the
be
first day. Just I'll get over it.
incorrigible. Anyway, sorry. That got shunted aside. The tragic story about people dying and starving and stuff like that. But
Way to go, Garrison.
yeah, but survival would turn on a very shaky alliance with the Wampanoags, and so trade was begun. Learning local crops so they wouldn't starve, like corn, and receiving help in the hunt. So they were going to familiarize themselves, the new people, with the flora and fauna of the region. So let's puncture the myth. Dude, you have a puncture noise on there? I don't think you do. How about we just do it? What would a voice puncture? That would be the air going out of the balloon.
Yeah.
So okay. How about just like,
Probably not the air horn then.
how about just
yeah,
okay,
that works.
okay.
that works.
Okay, that was just me. Okay, so again, let's puncture this myth. This wasn't a timeless harmony. Okay, disease had already devastated the region. The Wampanoags faced pressure from Pequot and Narragansett rivals.
Narragansett.
Really?
Yeah,
Are we sure
It
about this
is.
one?
Who knows?
it
Who-
is.
who
I
knows?
Narragansett.
What, do you have to say it like you just said it though? Like you
Narragansett.
were really irritated when you said that.
No. I've been in the area. Narragansett.
I think this is
Narragansett.
Miss Keltner's chance to say something, pronounce something correct. It's
Yeah,
she wanted to
because
see.
usually
You know
I
what? Shine the light on her. Okay.
No, it's
Narragansett.
It's Narragansett because there's a Narragansett Bay.
Okay. All right. Well, I think the point here was that the Wampanoags had troubles with disease, but they also had troubles with like warring neighboring tribes
Yeah.
as well. So this is not going to be good for them. So after the first harvest came the shared feast that we call today Thanksgiving.
And there's
Yeah?
a great Disney movie about it called Squanto.
Squanto, a live action.
Squanto.
Oh my gosh! Every Thanksgiving, I still watch it on Disney Plus.
Oh my God.
Really?
I'm kind of tearing up right now.
Squanto, A Warrior's Tale.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know what I'm going
A
to do
grammar
this weekend.
colon,
I was
not-
going to watch
We
football,
ever since
but
this
not
new
now.
piece of equipment, we can't make it through a paragraph.
I'm just in a great mood because of this.
It's okay. All right. So Thanksgiving is well, was it really Thanksgiving back in the day? It was real, but it was fragile. Relations quickly frayed. And a smallpox epidemic, hey, what are you going to bring to the thing? I'll bring the sweet potatoes. What are you going to bring? Pumpkin pie? I'll bring smallpox, you know? That would wipe out much of the indigenous population around Plymouth.
I really wanted to press a button, but I didn't. I didn't.
That would have been appropriate.
One thing that I really appreciate about Plymouth is there is a hill overlooking Plymouth Rock, and on top of the hill there is a monument to what's called the National Day of Mourning, and
Yes.
this is what a lot of indigenous Americans, instead of celebrating Thanksgiving, they honor the National Day of Mourning, which is all about the loss of indigenous lives due to Europeans' arrival. So on a serious note, if you do make it to Plymouth, the Rock isn't great, but go up the hill, and that's a really thoughtful place to think about the effects of this interaction.
Okay, well said.
So they're going to set up a governor. William Bradford is going to serve repeatedly as the governor, but Plymouth is still going to remain poor. They are going to build a small economy through fishing and fur trading, and more colonists are going to start to trickle in.
It's really going to be these other colonists, these Puritans who start to arrive that sort of stabilize things. So the Puritans are not separatists. Instead, they wanted to purify the Church of England, hence the name Puritans. And they're the ones who are really going to launch this massive attempt to make the colony work. And they're led by the Massachusetts Bay Colony, or the Massachusetts Bay Company. And in 1630, John Winthrop sailed 17 ships, 1,000 settlers. So this is quite the endeavor, right?
It's huge.
They're going for it. And they've got this charter with them. They've got approval. And it's going to allow the colony to govern itself in New England. So here again, we're seeing these moments of autonomy, of creation, and it's no surprise that it's a big deal.
So Winthrop's message was both aspirational and pretty sobering. We shall be as a city upon a hill. The eyes of all people are upon us. No pressure, right? That model would be a theocracy. So APUSHers, instead of writing something on a written response saying, hey, they were a kind of a religious governed society, use the word theocracy. Use the proper noun. This is where a society where church and state were deeply entwined. So civil law and religious law are basically the same thing. So irony alert, seekers of religious liberty at home often enforced conformity in Massachusetts. No room for public dissent.
Okay, so we covered the Pilgrims in Plymouth, Massachusetts. We covered the Puritans who settled the Massachusetts Bay Colony, which will be headquartered in Boston. And now we're going to move to Rhode Island. And in comes Roger Williams, who was a brilliant but pretty stubborn guy. And he's going to push 2 points. And that is one, liberty of conscience, which would be liberty of religion, and a separation of church and state going along with that. And the second thing he's going to push is fair dealing with native peoples, including recognition that the land really belonged to them and not English settlers. So because of these two ideas that were non-conforming, in 1635 he was banished. Banished!
Banished, I say.
Banished.
Banished.
Banished is the word of the episode.
Banished.
And so in 1635, he's going to take winter refuge with the Narragansetts, and he's going to purchase land from them, and he's going to found Providence, Rhode Island. And then in 1644, he's going to secure a charter, and he makes the case against religious uniformity. And he says, and this is a quote, "An enforced uniformity of religion confounds the civil and religious and denies the principles of Christianity and civility." And so he called coerced worship an offense to God. And again, he said, and I quote, "Forced worship stinks in God's nostrils."
Wow.
And so, yeah, Rhode Island's going to become a rare place where all believers, Jews, Quakers, Baptists, could worship without interference.
So we're seeing pretty quickly some foundational ideas or ideals of America are there from the beginning. It's going to take a while for them to truly reveal themselves, but this idea of religious tolerance and religious freedom is there from the beginning with someone like Roger Williams. All right, so on that same vein, we moved to Anne Hutchinson, which, by the way, last year when I was talking about Anne Hutchinson, I called Anne Hutchinson. I called Anne Hutchinson a baddie.
Oh, cringe.
Is it too old?
That is no.
Is it just
So I guess I thought it meant that she was like really cool.
bad?
Like,
Bad to the
bad to
bone.
the bone.
Yeah.
And my students told me that's not what it means.
Well, that's what I thought it meant.
No.
What does it mean?
It means like attractive.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, you
you've
know what?
always
She
a
had
thing for
15
those-
kids, so
You've had a thing for those Puritans.
Yeah. She was. I don't know if she was a looker or not. They had. There's a lot of different. Who knows? I'm more about her personality. Is maybe,
Right, her mind, what she
mind,
did,
right.
her bravery.
that's right,
And
kids. That's the
speaking of-
lesson here. So
Speaking of bravery, what did she do? So she's going to challenge this puritanical stranglehold on speech and of access to religion. She's going to straight up challenge some of those ministers on topics like grace. She claimed that these outward works and words didn't by themselves prove salvation. And she also, probably most controversially, held that mixed-sex meetings, so men and women meeting together in her home, critiquing some of the ideas put forth by the clergy, pushed the boundaries of women's ability to have public speech. For this, she was tried in 1637 and convicted of heresy and sedition and banished.
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 And this is not a happy ending. She's going to later die following an indigenous-led uprising near present-day New York. In the examination, she told her judges when she's on trial, she said, quote, "I bless the Lord. He hath let me see which was the clear ministry and which the wrong."
Bam.
Yeah, mic drop.
Whew. So Williams and Hutchinson are perfect APUSH comparison fodder. Both dissenters. Williams focuses on the church-state separation and native land rights. Hutchinson centers on what we call soteriology, and that's a broad theological framework on how salvation works. Now, within that, you guys might recognize what predestination is. That is a wow, I got cricketed. Okay. Anyway, so how salvation works and gendered authority. Like, hey, you're a woman. You live in New England. You need to shut up and sit down is basically, what she had to deal with. So both expose the limits of Puritan, and I put this in air quotes, tolerance.
We missed an opportunity. I think soteriology should have been the word of the episode.
Soteriology.
Mr. Hill was giving us an explanation of that before we started recording, and it was as boring as you might think.
They were actually snoring within like 13 seconds of my speech.
I'll tell you who wasn't snoring, though, those Puritans.
They were not. They were riveted.
They were riled up.
They were hanging out with their neighbors.
So we've got these early conflicts that we mentioned previously, like the Pequot War in 1637, which really ended with the near elimination of local Pequot power. But the real cataclysm for natives came around 1675, 1676, when Metacom, who the English will call King Philip, a Wampanoag leader, formed a coalition to finally try. They realized, look, these crazy Puritans with their crazy clothes, their hats, and their buckles.
They were off the charts crazy.
They did love their buckles, yeah.
And so they keep coming, and they don't stop, and we've got to do something about this. So they're going to form this coalition to start to try to resist this English expansion. It's going to break out into a war that lasts around 14 months and was the bloodiest 17th century conflict in New England. Over 3,000 native people and about 1,000 colonists died, which if you consider how many people were there, that's a huge percentage of the population. Dozens of towns were burned, and it was just pure devastation.
And because of this, Puritan writers like Cotton Mather cast this war as a cosmic struggle with the devil, reflecting a deep mistrust of indigenous people. And I quote Cotton Mather, "Never was a poor plantation more pursued by the wrath of the devil." And that worldview really shaped policy and punishment in the Puritan society.
You know who you sounded like when you did that quote? You sounded like Bobby Boucher's mama in The Waterboy.
It's a great movie.
Like, foosball's the devil, Bobby. Vicky Valancourt, she's the devil.
Bobby.
Bobby. So, anyway, back to the Puritans and whatnot. Cotton Mather, and so didn't he have a son? And his son, way cool name. His son's name was Increase. Increase Mather. Like, oh, I've increased the Mathers by one. Isn't that a trip? That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So for primary sources in class, compare Mary Rowlandson's Captivity Narrative, a bestseller that blends trauma and faith and providence, with John Easton's account, which tries to summarize native grievances and the failures of colonial diplomacy. Both are what we would consider imperfect windows into what was going on in history, but they let students source and situate perspectives, which are core AP skills.
Another global event that has an important role to play in our story is the English Civil War from 1642 to 1651 and the interregnum that slowed migration to the colonies. And this period of time meant that a lot of Puritans especially were waiting to see how it would all play out. Maybe they wouldn't have to leave England after all. So it wasn't until the Restoration in 1660 that colonization picked back up, when you have these new royal ambitions and they start handing out charters. And this is going to lead to the creation of new colonies.
The restoration of the monarchy.
Yes.
Yeah, after the English Civil War, which we don't know that much about and don't care that much about.
Who cares?
This isn't AP Euro. This isn't AP Euro for all.
That's boring.
In interregnum, it sounds like a part of your body, or it's like, oh, my interregnum's inflamed. I got to go get it taken out or something.
I got to go get an interregnum exitus. All right, so we're going to have some new colonies added to the mix, and the first is going to be the Carolinas. And proprietors dreamed up of a hierarchical society where, you would have wealthy elite planters at the top, and then so on and so forth at the bottom. But reality is not really going to allow for this. So North Carolina is going to become a back country of small farmers, while South Carolina, because it has a harbor at Charlestown, now known today as Charleston, developed a rice economy that was really tied to African expertise in that crop, with cultivation and irrigation information. And then many early planters are going to come from Barbados, transplanting this slave-based plantation model because rice cultivation was labor-intensive. So these tensions between small landholders and then these Barbadian elites were constant. And so by 1719, colonists start to seize control, and by 1729, the region's going to split into two colonies, which is how we get North and South Carolina.
Did you guys know that 8 out of the 10 richest men in colonial America lived in Charleston?
Yeah.
That gives you the weight.
Huge concentration.
So important as a port. Sadly, human cargo was involved there with that. So we switched to New Netherland, which became New York. And so obviously controlled by the Dutch and now controlled by the English. So New York in 1664, Charles II grants the territory to his brother James, the Duke of York. The English fleet forces Peter Stuyvesant to surrender New Amsterdam. The Dutch briefly retook it in 1673, but lost it for good in 1674. New York was ethnically diverse: Dutch, English, Scandinavians, Germans, who else we got there? French, Africans, multiple native nations. Property and power were highly unequal, with big estates held by Dutch patroons and English favorites. So patroons would be like the lords of manors. So
yeah. And I think it's important we can emphasize here that a lot of the middle colonies, New York included, is a place that's way more up for grabs. There's not a lot of these hard and fast lines of separation that you will see in the southern colonies or in Puritan New England. There's a lot of different ethnic groups, a lot of different religions. It's much more in pursuit of trade and cultivating these cosmopolitan areas. So that's an important distinction for APUSHers to make.
Yeah, if you're going to associate one word with the middle colonies, make it diverse. Diverse economically, socially, even geographically. Yeah.
True that.
So with New York, it shows how slavery, though, operated very differently than how it plays out in the southern colonies. Under Dutch influence, the West India Company granted some petitioners what they called half freedom, meaning they could work for wages and even receive land, though their children remained enslaved and they would pay an annual fee. But it produced New York's first free black community. And this is really important to note the difference of how things can play out in different parts of the colonies. It didn't have to be one thing. It's a very complicated story, and it's important that we note the differences.
And then New Jersey comes in, another middle colony, and who ran that? The Duke of what? Jersey?
Jersey?
Okay.
I think it was the Duke of Springsteen.
Oh.
Ah,
That
yes.
was
The boss.
the boss.
New Jersey's also going to be split in two, kind of like the Carolinas, but it'll be split into East Jersey and West Jersey, but eventually it's going to be reunited in 1702, and it is still going to remain diverse, yet fragmented because of that diversity and without a powerful landowning elite like New York's.
So the Quaker story is different, or what originally was called the Society of Friends, which the popular TV show later would be based on, the Quaker experience. Did you guys know that?
That was the TV show Friends?
Yeah,
Was based-
Jennifer Aniston, all those people, they
not
were
know
they
that.
were like big Quaker people.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
Friends.
Oh yeah.
Quaker propaganda.
Yeah, I feel like you should have hit a button when I did that.
Oh, yeah, you kinda got away from
but
that.
that's okay. That's all right.
I'm
That's
trying
okay.
to
You're showing some Puritan restraint.
calm down. Yeah.
So, speaking of Puritan restraint and intolerance, the Quakers would have rejected the idea of predestination and original sin, and they believed in the quote-unquote inner light, the divinity within each person. So they used plain speech, thee and thou, tended toward egalitarian practice, which is just a fancy word for equality, and were pacifists. William Penn, well connected at court, received a vast grant in 1681 and pitched Pennsylvania as a quote-unquote holy experiment of religious toleration and fair dealing with native peoples. He planned Philadelphia, I hate to say it, but the reigning Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles.
Let's go Birds.
Fly,
Okay,
Eagles,
well,
fly.
let's calm down a little bit. Nothing's okay. They won a game last night. Okay,
Yeah, they
Chiefs are
did.
playing tonight. We'll see what happens.
They're playing
So,
tonight? Oh,
yeah.
they're in Brazil.
They're in Brazil.
Yeah, we're recording on Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. So he planned Philadelphia and recruited settlers with savvy advertising. By 1701, pressures led Penn to grant a Charter of Liberties, a unicameral, that means one, kids, assembly that limited proprietary power. Ooh, say that 10 times really quick.
Proprietary power, proprietary power, proprietary power, proprietary power. That was pretty good.
Dang, you were nailing it.
I could have this one.
Oh, I pressed the wrong one. I pressed the record scratch. I meant to do.
Good. Rim shot is much more appropriate for that. So good job. And allowed the lower counties to form their own assembly. So there's a big latitude here of tolerance in with the Quakers.
Yeah, and that lower assembly will eventually become Delaware. So now we've brought in most of the colonies here. By the way, wouldn't it have been great if maybe the Quakers just would have kind of taken over everywhere?
And egalitarian principles and tolerance would have been the
Pacifists.
rule of law.
Yeah, just everybody. And we'd all have a lot of oatmeal, I would imagine.
Oh my God!
Did you guys know I eat oatmeal for breakfast every morning?
Yeah, you've
Didn't you
talked
do
about-
that for like an entire year or something?
overnight oats?
They're not overnight. I just do the steel cut.
My wife eats overnight oats. We'll see if she listened to this podcast.
Now, what do you doctor that up with?
A little almond oat milk combo and protein powder.
Look at you. No fresh fruit, anything like that?
No, I despise
No brown
fresh
sugar?
food.
No sugar. No, sugar
sugar.
would be anathema to everything you're trying to accomplish
no
with
sugar
that
for
health.
me.
I'd go to
I'm
Waffle
already-
House to get the
I'm already
All-Star
too
special.
sweet.
That's
Yeah,
what
that's why you end up in the
Excuse me? Come on.
bathroom every morning.
No, keep
What?
this clean.
Hey,
What the heck?
Hey, this is PG.
This is supposed to be
This
a
is
family
PG.
friendly.
Come on.
We have to redo this.
Hey, haven't you read the children's book? Everybody.
Let's just. God. We're gonna have to delete all.
No.
The children's
because
book,
I'm-
everybody eats oatmeal?
This is,
I am in charge of editing too, so I have
Oh,
total
boy.
freedom.
I will say
Okay.
that this has been And I don't know if it's because of this new equipment or because it's Friday afternoon, but this has been the most unfocused,
unhinged
podcast we've ever
I'm
done.
off the rails.
You know
I will
what,
admit it.
though?
I'm sorry,
I'm going to
audience.
say it in a positive way. We are at the height of giddiness, and I kind of like that.
Yeah. We're also at the height of time.
Oh, boy. Okay.
So
Yeah.
here we go.
Okay.
We're gonna finish this off with a real fun story of Georgia in 1732, where James Oglethorpe said, "You know what? Let's create a military buffer against Spanish Florida. That way, those Spaniards can't come up and bother us." And he said it'll be a place for the poor. We'll put all the poor people in front of us. So if the Spanish come to kill us, they'll have to go through all the poor people. So that sounds like a lot of fun. They limited land holdings. They initially actually barred slavery. Again, they had this vision of what it would become. They tried to regulate trade. They didn't allow Catholics. No Catholics. Sorry, Ms. Keltner.
Yeah, I can't go.
It didn't really work all that well because reality again pushed back. The Spanish started to recede. They lose a lot of their power. They fade away. And Georgia, believe it or not, instead of being a place for the poor to try to build up a life, they quickly shifted to plantation, cash crop, southern colony. Yeah.
Is it this one?
Very good. Let's get past this segment.
Is it this one? Okay.
Okay, so we've covered all of the English colonies pretty much now. Let's talk about their relationship to the crown. We've mentioned in a previous episode the concept of mercantilism, and this is where the mother country of all of these colonies, England, had a favorable balance of trade, that the colonies could only trade with the British, and so the mother country has a huge advantage economically. And so the crown is going to try to codify mercantilism through something called the Navigation Acts. And this is going to start in 1660, and it is going to restrict colonial exports like tobacco only to English ships and English markets. It's then going to be followed up with another round of Navigation Acts in 1663, which is going to force European goods bound for America to pass through England for taxation. And then another Navigation Act in 1673 is going to levy duties on intercolonial coastal trade and also install customs officials to make sure everything's on the up and up. So these three acts are going to form the legal basis for imperial regulation for about a century of the colonial economy.
And I don't think the colonists are going to like this very much. They don't like it. It's like when your mom says, "Oh, you can't go out Friday night until you clean your room," and you're like, "You've never told me that before." Well, I'm telling you now. It's a rule now.
Right.
And you're like, okay. So the acts themselves, they didn't make independence inevitable, but they certainly normalized British interference in colonial economies and sparked smuggling and resentment, habits that will matter a lot after 1763.
Yeah, and so that kind of gets us warmed up for what is going to be inevitable, is this break away from Britain. Sorry, spoiler alert. But
foreshadowing.
yes,
Oh,
we can
boy.
already see that foreshadowing.
I didn't know.
Yeah, so let's do some summaries, right? Everything we've talked about, the Mayflower Compact and New England's town governance begins this tradition of self-government and consent by the people. We're going to see that in our American foundational documents. Next, conformity versus conscience, right? Roger Williams and Anne Hutchinson, they're going to expose the tensions inside this godly commonwealth of the Puritans, and these are great for comparison prompts that you might see in APUSH curriculum. Next, obviously, we have native resistance to all of this and violence because of it through King Philip's War in the 1670s, and they really show the scale of conflict and for causes of the conflict like land, law, and who has sovereignty. Also, we've talked about a lot of restoration from the English Civil War and expansion. And so this is going to reorder North American colonization. We get the introduction of the Carolinas. We also get the middle colonies, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. And then Georgia is also going to come around in the early 1700s. And finally, mercantilism matters, that these navigation acts, they're going to start to tighten imperial control over the colonies. This is going to nurture smuggling and foreshadow later constitutional debates over authority and rights.
Whew, we covered a lot there. That was a big episode.
Lots of button pushing.
Yeah. Perfect.
Add to.
So thanks everybody for tuning in to APUSH for All. Hopefully you liked this episode, and if you did, subscribe on Spotify, Apple iTunes, YouTube. Leave us a review, and if you got a topic you want us to cover, or maybe a special episode at some point, send us a message on Instagram at APUSH4All.
Until next time, keep learning from yesterday to make sense of today.